of the Kenyan Mau independence struggle, the decision to pay 25 million euros to some 5,000 claimants comes 4 years since Kenya filed its first lawsuit in a London court for abuses inflicted on veterans of the war for independence. As we hear in the CFI report, the veteran could set a precedent for other ex-colonies of Britain, whilst many of the victims feel the compensation is not just enough.
4 years ago, these veterans of Kenya's war for independence filed suit with the London court for abuses inflicted on them by British soldiers during colonial rule. The UK originally argued that the claims filed were outside the legal time limit, but in October, the London High Court ruled that the claims were still valid. The result has been an apology from the British government and 25 million euros worth of compensation to be paid out to some 5,000 claimants.
The British government recognises that Kenyans were subject to torture and other forms of ill treatment at the hands of the colonial administration. The British government sincerely regrets that these abuses took place and that they marred Kenya's progress towards independence.
The Mau Mau uprising lasted from 1952 until 1960. The insurgents demanded the end to British colonial rule. Estimates vary widely, but Kenyan human rights groups say that as many as 10,000 Mau Mau may have been killed, compared to 32 British colonists. Suspected sympathizers were placed in camps and often tortured. Beatings, rapes, castrations, and executions were common. Some prisoners were burned alive. Although grateful that the UK has finally admitted its abuses, many of the victims feel the compensation being offered is insufficient.
And on behalf of
Enough? It is never enough. We were held for 10 years. 4,000 euros per person is hardly enough. But this statement from the British government, even without the money, is already compensation.
It took years of legal battles to get here.
Thousands of people have been hurt in demonstrations gripping Turkey spreading from Istanbul right to the capital Ankara and all across the country. 3 people have been killed. The Turkish media have also reported the death of a police officer who is said to have fallen from a construction site while chasing protesters. The other 2 deaths were of demonstrators. One was a young man in Antakya. His family told CNN's Ben Witherman that the Prime Minister is to be blamed.
The chant is loud and clear. Thousands in the southern Turkish city of Antakya gathered to voice one demand. Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan must go. In a late-night demonstration, men and women, young and old, have joined a movement that sprang to life last Friday in Istanbul. Antakya has seen violent clashes since then, clashes that have already claimed 1 life here. Friends and relatives have come to pay their condolences to the Çömert family. 22-year-old Abdullah Çömert was killed Monday in Antakya in southern Turkey when police clashed with demonstrators who had come out in solidarity with the protesters in Istanbul. He was hit in the back of the head with what his family says was a tear gas canister. This picture, provided by a relative, shows a massive wound to the skull. His mother, Khadija, recalls begging Abdullah not to go back to the demonstrations, but he insisted he had to go because it was his destiny to help bring about change. A destiny his grieving mother finds hard to comprehend. The killer of my son was Tayyip Erdogan and senior security officials, his father tells me, referring to the Prime Minister. They're responsible for his death. On the spot where he died, friends have set up a makeshift memorial. People here have no doubt who killed Abdullah. At close range. Turkey's deputy prime minister expressed sadness over the death, and an official autopsy is underway. But these witnesses, family, say no one in authority has approached them to investigate the circumstances of Abdullah's death. This sudden outpouring of anger at a prime minister some Turks feel is revealing an authoritarian streak is expressed in many ways. The late-night demonstration was followed by raucous motorcades through the streets.
It's not clear here in the streets of Antakya whether they're demonstrating against Erdogan or celebrating the fact that their voices are now being heard.
Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Antakya, Turkey.
It's been a little more than 2 years since the raid that killed the Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, while new details are now emerging about possible leak of top secret relating to his capture. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr has more.
The top-secret raid by Navy SEALs and the CIA to get Osama bin Laden became an international thriller in the movie Zero Dark 30. But an even bigger mystery? How did the filmmakers, especially producer Mark Boal, find out so much about the mission?
We gathered as many first-hand accounts as we possibly could from people who had direct knowledge of the events that we portrayed. But beyond that, I won't get too specific about who those people were.
But Congressman Peter King says the CIA privately told him secrets were spilled against the rules, and the chief offender may have been the CIA and its director, Leon Panetta. An early draft of a Pentagon report made public by a watchdog group says Mark Boal was allowed into what should have been a secret CIA ceremony acknowledging those who participated in the raid. And, quote, during the awards ceremony, Director Panetta specifically recognized the unit that conducted the raid and identified the ground commander by name. The Navy unit, commonly known as SEAL Team 6, and the commanders were all supposed to have their identities kept secret. A source close to Panetta says the final Pentagon report won't deal with what Panetta did during his time at the CIA. He says the director was told everyone in that room had the necessary security clearances, and Panetta never knew Mark Boal was there. CNN has not independently confirmed what that watchdog group says is a draft Pentagon report, but a former CIA official insists that no classified information about the bin Laden raid ever made it into the public arena. Barbara Starr, CNN, the Pentagon.
We now take our second break. Welcome back. Preparations are underway as the much-awaited clash between the Gambia and Ivory Coast inches closer. The two countries will face off Saturday at the Independence Stadium in the FIFA qualifiers for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Our MS Jala visited the Scorpions training ground ahead of their encounter with the Elephants of Ivory Coast, and he now reports.
Awaited encounter between the Scorpions of the Gambia and the Elephants of Ivory Coast in the return leg of the 2014 World Cup qualifiers is just a matter of days from now. And as you can see, behind me are the Scorpion players just finishing one of their training sessions. And Peter Bonu Johnson, the head coach, has called both foreign and local-based players for the game. And they are preparing, fine-tuning themselves ahead of that big clash against the mighty Elephants of Ivory Coast, who are the #1 ranked team on the African continent. The two teams head into Saturday's encounter with Ivory Coast leading the race in Group C, as they seek to book a place in next year's World Cup in Brazil, whilst the Gambia are rooted at the bottom of the group. The Elephants of Ivory Coast are favorites to qualify from the group and on course for a third consecutive World Cup appearance. A win over the Gambia on Saturday will move Sabri Lamouchi's side a step closer to qualification. The Gambia, on the other hand, despite managing just 1 point in 3 matches, are still not out of the race, But getting to Brazil 2014 now seems a daunting task for the school.